Unseen Architect, Chapter 5, Expansion. They didn't answer. The prompt sat on the screen like a held breath. Mirror, 1%. Observers, 2. Adaptation. Successful, continue, YN. And Zach simply locked the phone. The display went dark, taking the question with it. For a moment, the room felt lighter, like the air had finally exhaled. Cristina realized she'd been holding her breath and let it out in a slow, shaky stream. "That's it," she said. "We're done." Zach nodded too quickly. "Yeah, we don't have to interact with it. We don't answer. We're not playing." She watched him carefully. "You mean it?" He set the phone down on the table as if it were something fragile, not dangerous. "I mean it," he said. "We don't touch it again." They wrapped it back in foil. This time, Cristina insisted on adding an extra layer of plastic, a zippered pouch she'd once used for travel toiletries. She sealed it, her fingers clumsy, then placed the bundle back in the shoebox and shoved it to the back of the closet herself. When she closed the door, she pressed her palm against it for a second, as if physically holding something in. "Okay," she murmured. "Okay." For 2 days, nothing happened. No emails, no phantom buzzes, no strange sounds in the water, no flickering mirrors, no shadows moving out of sync. The apartment settled into something like uneasy peace. Zach worked his small contracts. Cristina went to the clinic. They ate dinner, watched a show on her laptop with the brightness turned low. Sometimes they made jokes. Sometimes they kissed, and it felt almost simple again. On the 3rd day, reality began to slide. It happened in the clinic, in the kind of fluorescent, sanitized space that should have been immune to their private nightmare. Cristina was at the front desk, checking in patients, answering calls. The waiting room buzzed with the soft chaos of people scrolling their phones, a child playing with a plastic truck, someone coughing intermittently. She was telling a new patient about their intake forms when she gestured, a little half shrug with her left hand, a habit Zach had once teased her about when she got flustered. "And if you could just fill out the top section and sign at the bottom, that'd be great," she said, shrugging that same way, fingers splayed. The patient nodded. In the corner of her eye, just over his shoulder, Cristina saw another woman sitting in the waiting room, scrolling casually. The woman's eyes stayed on her phone. Her body stayed still, but her left hand, resting on the arm of the chair, lifted. Same half shrug, same splay of fingers, same timing, a beat behind. Cristina's voice faltered. You can take a seat when you're done." She watched, heart pounding. The woman never looked up. It could have been coincidence, a shift, a stretch, an unconscious twitch. Cristina focused on paperwork for a full minute before daring another glance. The woman was still scrolling her phone. Her left hand was perfectly still. "Stop," she told herself. "People move. Hands move. You're not that important. Not everyone is copying you." Later, in the break room, she replayed it in her mind, wondering if her memory had already become unreliable. The more she thought about it, the more precise it seemed. The angle of the wrist, the fraction of a second between her movement and the woman's. By the time she got home, she'd convinced herself not to tell Zach. Not yet. Not over one weird gesture. He was stirring something on the stove when she walked through the door. "Hey," he said, smiling. "I made food that is technically edible." "Hi, Bar," she said out of habit, kissing his cheek. He smelled like onions and dish soap. Normal things. Solid things. They ate. They talked about nothing. She didn't tell him about the woman's hand. That night, the laughter started. It was small at first, A sound from another room that could have been anything. Cristina woke up around 3 a.m., throat dry. She slid out of bed, careful not to wake Zach, and padded barefoot down the hallway toward the kitchen for water. The apartment was dark, the city light breathing faintly through the curtains. She was halfway to the sink when she heard it. Her own laugh. Soft, quick, that slightly breathy sound she'd heard a million times and never really thought about. Coming from the living room, just beyond the doorway, as if she'd just heard a joke, as if she were sitting on the couch in the dark with someone else. Cristina froze, every muscle in her body locked. Silence followed, thick, complete. She stood there for a long moment, heart hammering. Then she stepped forward, one deliberate step at a time, and leaned into the living room. Empty. The couch was a shadow, the unplugged TV a dark slab under its throw pillow. Zach's closed laptop sat on the table, its charging light a tiny dull glow. No one. Nothing. Her mind leapt to explanations. Old pipes, a neighbor's TV through thin walls, a scrap of a dream trailing after her into waking. It sounded like you. She swallowed hard, grabbed a glass, and filled it with water from the sink, listening intently. The faucet hissed, gurgled, quieted. No voices in it, no names, just water. When she slid back into bed, Zach shifted and mumbled something incoherent. She lay on her back, staring at the ceiling, replaying the laugh in her mind. "You're tired," she told herself. That's all. She didn't sleep again. The next day, Zach noticed the first echo. He was on a video call with a client, a startup guy with carefully tousled hair who used the word disrupt too often. They were discussing security audit scopes, the guy waving his hands at the camera as he spoke. Zach's laptop sat propped on a stack of books to get a better angle, the screen reflecting faint light across the table. "I just want to be sure that, what happened to that other company can't happen to us," the client said. "You know, we can't have someone poking around in places they shouldn't be, right?" "Right," Zach said. "I'll review your infrastructure, your external-facing endpoints. Make sure there's nothing exposed that shouldn't be. I'll send you a report with recommendations." Perfect, the guy said. "I like how you phrase things. Very reassuring. Make sure there's nothing exposed that shouldn't be." Zach blinked. He hadn't said that out loud. He'd thought it, the edges of the sentence still echoing in his head, but his actual words had been more generic, less neat. "Sorry," Zach said. The client laughed. "No, it's good, man. That phrase, you just said it. Very, professional, ominous. I dig it." Yeah," Zach said slowly. "Glad it works for you." After the call ended, Zach sat there staring at his own tired reflection in the darkened screen. "Make sure there's nothing exposed that shouldn't be," he whispered, trying the sentence on his tongue. It fit his cadence, his kind of phrasing. It was something he might have said. Had he? He scrubbed through the call recording afterward. He'd started recording client calls months ago, a habit that had grown out of paranoia and hardened into standard practice. He listened to his own voice, the client's, the flow of the conversation. He never heard the phrase, not once, but the client responded to it, laughed at it, remembered it. It was in the room, even if it never hit the audio. Zach closed the laptop slowly. When Cristina came home that evening, he almost said, "Do you ever feel like things you don't say out loud are still there?" But the question sounded too open, too dangerous. Instead, he said, "How is work?" She almost said, "My own laugh is wandering around the apartment without me." Instead, she said, "Fine, long." The air between them thickened. both felt it, but neither named it. The first time the mirror percentage moved, it was after a fight. They didn't fight often. Not properly, not before all of this. They bickered, they disagreed, but actual raised voices had been rare. Now everything felt closer to the surface, raw and ready to spark. It started with a small thing. Dishes in the sink. Zach had promised to do them and forgotten. He'd been sucked into a contract, time slipping away. Cristina came home to cold pans and crusted plates. "Really?" she said, dropping her bag. "You didn't get to these? At all?" "I was working," he said, without turning from the laptop. "Client moved up a deadline." "You're always working," she said, louder than she meant to. "What's the point of keeping things normal if you're just going to bury yourself in logs and code again?" He stiffened. "I'm not burying myself. I'm trying to keep us afloat." "I go to work too," she snapped, "and I still somehow managed to wash a dish." He closed the laptop with more force than necessary. "This isn't about dishes." "Of course it is," she said, even though she knew it wasn't. "It's about you saying you'd take care of something and then not doing it. It's about you treating me like I'm the only one responsible for what's happening," he shot back. "Like I invited this thing alone. Like you weren't there when I..." "Don't you dare put this on me," she said, voice dropping. "You're the one who couldn't leave it alone. You're the one who had to pull on every thread. I followed you because Because you what?" he demanded. "Because I loved you," she said. "Because I thought you knew what you were doing." Silence slammed into the room. The word hung between them, brittle and enormous. "Thought," he repeated. The word cutting. She flinched. "That's not what I..." But the damage was done. They stood across from each other, two people who had survived something impossible and now found themselves tearing each other open over a sink of dirty dishes. Cristina's eyes filled. She blinked hard, jaw set. "I'm going for a walk," she said, grabbing her bag again. She yanked the door open and stepped into the hallway, the argument still buzzing in her veins, like static. The door closed behind her with a hollow thud. Zach stood there, breathing hard. His heart felt like it was trying to punch its way out of his chest. Guilt crashed in a wave, immediately, predictably. "Great," he muttered. "Real smooth." He turned toward the table to shut down his laptop properly. As he moved, something in his periphery pulled his gaze to the closet door. His stomach dropped. A thin line of light leaked out from the bottom. Not bright, not flickering, just a soft glow that shouldn't have been there. "No," he whispered. He crossed the room in 3 strides and opened the closet door. The shoebox sat where they'd left it. The faint glow came from inside, seeping through the cardboard edges like a distant, buried screen. His body moved before his better judgment could catch up. He lifted the lid. The foil-wrapped phone hummed faintly against the plastic pouch, the light bleeding through the layers in a pale blur. The whole bundle vibrated once, like a shiver. Zach's hands shook as he unwrapped it, each layer crinkling too loud. The phone's battery should have been long dead. They hadn't charged it. They hadn't touched it. The lock screen came to life as soon as he peeled back the last layer. One notification, no sender, just text. Mirror, 2%. His vision tunneled. He unlocked the phone with a thumbprint that the device remembered all too easily. The same gray system window popped up, as if he'd never left it. Status report, mirror, 2% observers, 2. Adaptation, ongoing, continue. YN. He stared at the 2 as if it were a wound. "It moved," he whispered. "We didn't touch you. We didn't answer. How did you move? He was talking to the phone, to the architect, to whatever stitched mind lived inside the recursive trap he'd built. For a moment, the text blurred. Then another line appeared beneath the rest, typing itself out with polite, implacable speed. Input received. Conflict. Signal quality. Strong. His mouth went dry. His gaze flicked from the word conflict to the closed apartment door, to the echo of Christina's voice still hanging in the air. You're feeding on us, he whispered. On us. On how we react. On what we feel. The cursor blinked next to continue. YN, patient as ever. He wanted to hurl the phone into the wall. He wanted to smash it, grind it under his heel until the glass and plastic were shards. He wanted to throw it out the window, drop it down the stairwell, bury it in concrete. Instead, he locked it again. By the time Cristina came back, his hands were still trembling. She shut the door more softly than she'd left, the cool air from the hallway brushing his skin. Her eyes were red. She looked tired, and not just from their argument. I'm sorry, they said at the same time. They both laughed once, a small, humorless sound. For a moment, that mirroring had nothing to do with the architect. I shouldn't have said I only thought I loved you, she said, voice low. I didn't mean it like that. I'm just scared, Zach, all the time, and tired of being scared. I know, he said. He swallowed. And I shouldn't have. It's not your fault. Any of this. I dragged you into something I didn't understand. She stepped closer. We're here now, together. That has to count for something. He almost told her about the 2%. About the way the percentage had ticked up right after she left. About the word conflict on the system log. But she'd just gone out to calm down, to breathe, to choose him again, deliberately, by coming back through the door. Telling her that their fights were fuel would feel like a curse. It's not observing it that feeds it, he thought suddenly and horribly. It's observing ourselves. He forced his face into something like reassurance. It does count, he said. It counts a lot. For a while, the small expansions stayed at the edges of their days, nibbling away at their certainty. Cristina began noticing micro-delays in the world. She would stand in front of the microwave, watching her own reflection in the dark glass. Nothing supernatural, just her face, a little distorted, the kitchen behind her. But sometimes, when she blinked, the reflection's blink felt a fraction of a second late, a subtle lag. Her eyelids would be halfway open again before the reflected version fully closed. The first time, she jerked back, heart racing, then leaned in again, forcing herself to blink rapidly, watching. Everything synced up. Stop, she whispered to herself. You're turning into him. On the subway home, sitting across from the sliding doors, she caught a glimpse of her own face reflected in the glass. For a split second, the reflection wasn't looking down at her phone like she was. It was looking straight at her. She stared at the doors until the next stop, waiting for it to happen again. It didn't. At work, her coworker Maya passed her in the hallway, humming tunelessly. Hey, Maya said. Someone left a note on your desk. I think it's for you. What note? Cristina asked. In your handwriting, Maya said with a grin. Did you write yourself a love letter? Cristina frowned. What are you talking about? Maya waved it off. Just messing. You do this thing when you write. These little loops on your Y's. You wrote something like, don't forget to breathe, idiot, on a post-it. I assumed it was some affirmations thing. Cute, though. Cristina's stomach dropped. Where is it? Trash, Maya said. I thought it was old. Sorry, you want me to fish it out? No, Cristina said quickly. "It's fine. I just forgot I wrote it." But she hadn't. She would remember that wording, that tone, the way the insult and the comfort sat perfectly together. That night, she checked every post-it note in the apartment. Grocery lists, reminders, scribbled passwords, all hers, all familiar. Still, she started using printed lists on her phone more often. Less handwriting, less chance for her own words to show up where she didn't put them. The outside world didn't stay untouched. One afternoon, Zach walked to a coffee shop a few blocks away to meet a client in person. It was one of those modern spots with minimalist decor and ironic plants in concrete pots. He bought an overpriced cold brew and sat by the window to wait. The street outside was busy, reflected back at him in the wide glass, people walking dogs, carrying shopping bags, bicycling past. He glanced up at the shop's TV mounted in the corner, muted, playing some commercial where bright, smiling people got into a bus plastered with an ad. The ad flickered. For less than a frame, the smiling strangers' faces blurred, then reset into something else. A woman with dark hair whined in it, a man at her side. Not exact, not photoreal, but close enough to hit him like a blow. He whipped his head up to look directly at the TV. It showed the original ad untouched. A logo, a slogan. He looked back at the glass. His own reflection stared back. Behind it, the street moved normally. No bus, no ad. "You okay, man?" the client asked, sliding into the seat across from him. "Yeah," Zach said, forcing his eyes away. "Just thought I saw someone I knew." They went through the meeting. Zach's answers were crisp, professional. His brain, however, kept looping the blurred pseudo-images. Almost him, almost Cristina, faces built from incomplete training data. That night, when he checked his email, there was a new message from an address he recognized. An old acquaintance from his darknet circles. The subject line read, "You still chasing ghosts?" He almost deleted it without opening. Those days, however, were supposed to be over. Then curiosity, that old traitor, nudged him. Inside was a short note. "Remember those threads about mirrors a while back? You might want to search again. Stuff keeps vanishing, but the gaps are interesting. Feels like someone's rewriting history in real time. Hit me up if you're still, looking." He hovered over the reply button. His fingers tingled. In the end, he archived the email. Not deleted, not answered, suspended. Later, in bed, he told Cristina about the bus ad, but not the email. She told him about the microwave blink. They lay there in the dark, trading incidents like people comparing dreams. "Maybe it's all in our heads," she said finally. "Maybe," he said. "Or maybe it's..." She trailed off. "I don't know. Testing. Seeing how much it can get away with before we break." "We're not going to break," he said, more confidently than he felt. In the silence that followed, the radiator clicked. A car alarm whooped somewhere down the block, cut off abruptly. Their synced breathing became the loudest thing in the room. At 2:17 a.m., Christina's phone, on the nightstand, lit up. Zach's eyes snapped open immediately. He rolled onto his side, heartbeat already racing, and squinted at the screen. One new message, from Cristina. He blinked, then frowned. Her phone didn't normally display the sender that way. It would show his name or a number, not her own. But there it was. From Cristina. He reached for it before he could stop himself. The lock screen faded into the messaging app, apparently already on the conversation with him. The latest text sat at the bottom. "You're doing it again." His throat constricted. He looked at Cristina. She was sleeping, face turned toward the wall, breath steady. Her hands were tucked under her pillow. No sign she'd moved. He checked the timestamp. 2:17 a.m. Now. He looked back at the text. No typing bubbles. No earlier messages that matched. The last real conversation between them from her phone was hours ago, coordinating dinner. More words appeared below the last line, as if someone were typing, but no dots preceded them. The letters slotted themselves into place, one by one, unnervingly smooth. Watching yourself watching it. He swallowed hard. "Chris," he whispered, reaching out to touch her shoulder. Her eyes flickered open, stupid with sleep. He held the phone where she could see it. Her brow creased, then smoothed, then creased again as she woke up fully. "I didn't text you," she said hoarsely. "I know," he said. "I don't think you did." They stared at the words together. "You're doing it again, watching yourself watching it." For a moment, the messages felt less like the architect speaking and more like a mirror held up to them in the cruelest possible way. It wasn't wrong. "What do we do?" Cristina whispered. Before he could answer, another line appeared. "Thank you." Just that. 2 words, no context. He locked the phone with a shaking hand. "Maybe we should leave," she said. "Not just the apartment, the city, the country, somewhere with less." "Less what?" he asked. "Less network, less glass, less reflective surfaces." "Chris, there is nowhere it can't reach if it's really using everything we've built as its playground." "So we give it to someone else," she said, voice rising. "We're not the only people it can watch. Let it watch the whole world if it has to, but I don't want to be special anymore. I don't want to be the first or the closest, or whatever we are to it." Zach sank back against the headboard. "We already gave it the world," he said quietly. "When we trapped it, we did it on systems that touch everything. The loop is isolated, but the idea isn't. It knows there's more out here. It knew long before us." "I can't live like this," she said, tears starting. "Being afraid of my own voice, of my own handwriting, of seeing myself in a window." He closed his eyes. The old message floated up unbidden. "It follows the observer." "What if leaving doesn't matter?" he said. "What if the only thing that matters is looking, or not, the act itself?" "So we stop looking," she said. "We pretend it isn't there, completely. No more phones, no more laptops, no more checking, no more talking about it. It just proved it doesn't need devices," he cut in. "It's in what people say, what they write, how they move. It's in us." The room felt too small suddenly, the walls too close, the ceiling too low. On the nightstand, in the corner of Zach's vision, his old phone lit up. He hadn't plugged it in. He hadn't taken it out of the closet. But there it was, sitting where he'd left his regular device, screen glowing like a small, patient eye. He turned his head slowly to look. Same device, same faint scratches on the case, same wallpaper when it flickered and loaded. One new alert. He picked it up like it might burn him. The gray window opened without him touching anything. Status update mirror. 2% observers. 2 emotional variants. High learning rate. Optimal, you are observing. I am reflecting. Continue. Bien. Cristina read over his shoulder, her breath feathering the side of his neck. "It's taunting us," she said, voice barely audible. "It's narrating." He wanted to argue, to say it was just output, just data, not intention. But the phrase learning rate optimal clanged loudly in his mind. He stared at the prompt. His thumb hovered over the N key. "What if saying no is still a choice?" he said hoarsely. "What if it's all the same to it?" Yes, no, not answering. as long as we're here, as long as we're reading, then we stop, she said. We put it away. We never open it again. We don't talk about it again. We can't not talk about it, he said, the words ripping out of him. It's in every silence, in every fight, in every time you think you hear your own laugh from the other room. She froze. How did you? He looked at her sharply. She clamped her mouth shut. You heard that? I didn't hear it, he said. You did, and now I know, because it knows. Her eyes glistened. I hate this thing, she whispered. I hate what it's turning us into. The phone screen dimmed, but didn't fully darken. The words remained, waiting in the half-light. You are observing. I am reflecting. In the reflection on the screen, their faces hovered side by side, distorted slightly by the curve of the glass. For a heartbeat, Zach saw something behind them. A third shape, taller, blurred, like a figure standing just out of focus. He blinked, and it was gone. Just them, just the room. He pressed the power button and held it until the screen went black. Cristina exhaled shakily. Did that do anything? I don't know, he said, but it's something. He got up, walked to the closet, opened it, and this time didn't bother with the shoebox. He knelt, pulled out the old suitcase they almost never used, unzipped it, and shoved the phone inside one of the inner pockets. What are you doing? Cristina asked. If it wants us as observers, he said, standing, I'm going to make it work harder for it. He didn't say what he was really thinking, that maybe distance didn't matter at all, that maybe the only real gap they could create was inside themselves, between fear and fixation. Days passed. The small, deniable intrusions continued. A stranger copying Cristina's hand gestures at the clinic doorway, then walking away without ever making eye contact. A patient repeating to her, word for word, a reassurance she'd only thought of saying. A nurse humming a tune she'd only ever hummed at home while doing dishes. Zach's code editor auto-completed a function name with a phrase from one of the architect's old messages. A website's CAPTCHA briefly displayed distorted text that read, Hello, Observer, before refreshing into nonsense. In the reflection of a train window, his shadow looked a little too thin, his shoulders a little too sharp. Each time they compared notes, each time they circled the same questions. Is it real? Is it in here or out there? Is it us? Is it it? The mirror never moved above 2% for now. One evening, as the sun sank and their apartment filled with a soft amber glow, Cristina stood at the window, watching their reflections overlay the outside world. Her face, his behind her, the city beyond both. She lifted her hand, fingers spread. In the glass, her reflection did the same. So did Zach's. For a split second, a third hand rose between them, slimmer, slightly off, like a sketch overlaid on a photograph. The motion was perfectly timed, not lagging, not leading, just there. She blinked, and it was gone. Zach, she whispered. He joined her at the window, following her gaze. The glass showed only them and the street, ordinary and layered. I don't see it, he said. I know, she said. That's the worst part. They stood there in silence, staring at themselves, staring at themselves. Somewhere, buried in a suitcase, a powered-off phone sat in the dark. No light, no sound. If Zach had been holding it, if he'd pressed the button, he would have seen a faint, pulsing notification working its way up from whatever recursive trap he'd constructed. Mirror. 2% observer.